And now you can hear me. Ah, okay. There's some problem with the system. Hmm. Now, today we will be doing a new poem that is Good Morrow by the famous poet John Donne. It is a metaphysical poem, and for this reason, there's a difference with other poems also. Now, this poem by John Donne is something which is a new innovation in itself, because here the poet deals with something considered to be one of the best poems belonging to the metaphysical school of poetry. Metaphysical, the very word itself makes us understand that it is above the physical state. This poem is the poet's words to his beloved after night of love making. This will help the readers unravel the beautiful meaning behind the complex metaphysical conceit. Conceit is the far-fetched thought idea which the poet himself can understand and very well understand and makes us understand, and we understand from his understanding what he means to say. So it is a metaphysical conceit in this poem, and once the barrier is done away with, this poem will come across as one of the most powerful love poetry of all times. So in the beginning of the poem, I wonder by my truth, what thou and I did till we loved. Were we not weaned till then? So here he means to say in the beginning of the Good Morrow poem, the poet asks his beloved how they used to spend their lives before they had met each other. Before they had met each other. Probably with his beloved in his arms, the poet realizes how empty life was before. He considers that phase of their life to be as meaningless as ones spent in slumber. And so he says, weaned till then, but sucked on country's pleasures, slumber childishly. Or he gives another possibility, or snorted, slept, we in the seven sleepers dead. So here he means to say that they spend their life in slumber before they loved by the seven sleepers of Ephesus, Ephesus. Seven sleepers of Ephesus, Ephesus, in the den when they were trying to escape the wrath of the tyrant Emperor Decius. Tyrannic king he was. Or snorted we in the seven sleepers' den. It was so, but this all pleasures fancies be. By being without his beloved, was as insignificant as those years which the seven sleepers had spent sleeping. So he compares himself to these seven sleepers before they had fallen in love, were sleeping in the seven sleepers' den. It was so, but this all pleasures fancies be. If ever any beauty I did so, which I desired and got, it was but a dream of thee. So it means that those years bore no importance in his life anymore. During those years, when he was yet to discover true love, he would make up for that emptiness by indulging in other pleasures of life. But now, after understanding the meaning of love, he realizes that those pleasures were very artificial. whatever the pleasures might have been, they both have been involved in before they have fallen in love. Now it seems to the poet as if he was a small child during those days who was being weaned, or as a child is weaned to quietness, on these materialistic pleasures of the world in the absence of true love, which was like mother's milk to that child. So during those days, all objects of beauty that he came across were nothing but her beloved's reflection when they had not fallen in love. So to the poet, a beloved was like a beautiful dream which is turned into reality at the present. So in the good morals, we come to know that it is worth mentioning that through false pleasures, the poet might be indicating towards his various liaisons, LIAISONS, with other women which were just a reflection of the beauty which his true lover filled with him with. And then he goes to the second stanza. And now good morrow to our waking souls. So in the second stanza, the Good Morrow poem, the poet sheds light upon the blessings which envelops the lovers. He says that their souls rise in the light of the new morning of love in their lives. For love or love of their sights control, and makes one little room and everywhere. So their hearts are devoid of any kind of fear of commitment, misunderstanding, or losing the one they love. So here the poet sheds light upon the bliss which envelops the lovers. Their presence in each other's life means so much to them that nothing catches their attention anymore. So Donne proposes his beloved one to turn their tiny room in which they make love into their only world. So he may say that let sea discoverers to new worlds have gone. Let maps to others, worlds and worlds have shown. He says that he does not care about how much the sea discovers expand the boundaries of the world. He is not at all concerned with these mariners who are moving around the world to such new places, new cultures, new people around the world with their discoveries. Let maps to other worlds and worlds have known. The new inclusion to the map of the world meant nothing to the poet if the discoverers have done any new inclusion to the world that they discovered while roving in the sea. Let us possess our world, our hath one and is one. So this is an intellectual parallel from astronomy and geography and strengthens the metaphysics of the poem. Let the sea discoverers discover new places, lands and seas and cultures and people. Let new maps be drawn, new places be discovered. But here, the lovers have their own world, they possess their world. Each one of them is their world. She is to him and he is to her. That is their world. What the sea discoverers discover, the new maps are made, are added to the world's name. It does not bother them anymore. So he goes on to say, my face in thine eye, thine in mine appears. And true plain hearts do in the faces rest. So you can ask you this, what is this? What is the metaphysical conceits in the poem? So next the poet talks about the unique beauty of love, which he and his beloved share. My face in thine eye, Donne says that sometimes he and his beloved stare into each other's eyes so longingly that they can see their faces in the other's eyes. The reflection of faces in the eyes reveal the true hearts of the lovers, without sharp north, without declining west. So their hearts are true and spotless in love. This means that their love for each other enables the lovers to get rid of all their bad traits and harsh feelings towards the world, which help them become bitter people. They have no bitter attitude towards each other. Their lovers made everything new for them in this world. Whatever dies was not mixed equally. So the poet further adds that unlike the world, which is divided in hemispheres, north and south hemispheres, the world of love knows no boundaries. It is one hemisphere. It does not have a sharp, cold northern hemisphere, nor does it have a western hemisphere which has to bid farewell to the sun. Whatever dies was most mixed equally. If our two loves be one, or thou and I live so alike that none of do slacken, none can die. So by drawing this reference to geography again, the poet tries to give us an insight into the unparalleled bliss of the world, of love where it is always warm and sunny. So their love is the love of warmth and of the sunny days of life. It is sunny love. So the good morrow, from the good morrow we understand the summary will help the readers in understanding the link which Donne draws, John Donne, the poet, draws from medieval alchemy towards the end of the poem to explain the immortality of the love which he shares with his beloved. The poet says to his beloved, one, that their love is indestructible since it is pure. It is the hardest to relax the bonds of pure substances. The mixing of two things causes impurity, which threatens the longevity of a substance. The lovers do not feel this threat since their love is not mixed with any selfish demand. Selfless love they love. Honesty, purity, sanctity of love, or intentions of any kind that is perfectly pure. So, with such a strong bond of love between them, the poet is convinced that nothing can ever decrease or stop the stream of love which flows between his beloved and him. So I told you at the beginning that this the good morrow, which is prescribed in the NSOU syllabus, other universities also teach. Even CU, IGNOU, RBO and all. So the metaphysical, it is a metaphysical love poem that is above the physical state. There are conceits all over. Conceits means wit, intellect, that has to extend beyond the boundaries of the poet's thought. So the metaphysical poets were a loose group of British lyric poets of the 17th century who shared an interest in metaphysical concerns and a common way of investigating them, and whose work was characterized by inventiveness of metaphor. That is the greatness of their poetry. It is for this reason that the metaphysical poets have made their name. Totally different from the thoughts of other poets above the physical state. So these poets were not formally affiliated. Most of them did not even know or read each other. Their poetry was influenced greatly by the changing times, new sciences, and the newfound debauched scene of the 17th century. So it is called a metaphysical poem. This is a very important question. Metaphysical, when applied to poetry, usually involves love, science, geology, romance, sensuality, and man's relationship with God. Metaphysical poems are lyrical poems, usually containing intense meditation, characterized by striking use of wit, irony, play, or words, on words. So this wit, irony, and play on words should match with the poet and ours. If we are not able to match the poet and ourselves, then the poem is useless. Studying metaphysical is useless. We have to understand them as they understand the world of their own from the metaphysical state, the state that we are living in. So, underneath the formal structure of the underlying structure of the poet's argument, metaphysical poetry usually contains conceits, which is an image which you extend, which you develop an extended metaphor. So the metaphysical poetry follows the structure of a strong first line. These strong lines brings attention to other elements in metaphysical poetry. The term is used in connection with the prose as well, as with verse, and so invites us to look at metaphysical poetry in a wider context, above the metaphysics, above the physical state of our being. So at the time, metaphysical poetry's definition was an equal of ideas yoked by violence together. So the term metaphysical, when applied to poetry, has a long and intense, interesting history. You should know this, but the information in the great critics like Helen Gardiner's introduction to the metaphysical poets is more than adequate. So metaphysical poetry is concerned with the whole experience of man. But the intelligence, learning, and seriousness of the poet means that the poetry is about the profound areas of experience, especially about love, romantic and sensual, about man's relationship with God, the eternal perspective, and so, to a less extent, about pleasures, learning, and art. Here, of course, we are talking about love in its metaphysical state, not relationship with God, but with all the natural state around us and the natural events that occur around us. So, metaphysical poems are lyric poems. They are brief but intense meditations characterized by striking use of wit, irony, and wordplay. We have to match the wit, irony, and wordplay of the poet with ours. It is only then we get into the meaning of the poem. So, beneath the formal structure of rhyme, meter, stanza, is the underlying and often hardly less formal structure of the poem's argument. Note that there may be two or more kinds of argument in a poem. So we have the same in To His Coy Mistress. The explicit argument of Morrow's request that the coy lady, shy lady, yield to his passion when the poet wants to make love to her. So, so we see that this metaphysical standard of the poetry is a very vast concept standard. And here, what the metaphysical poet talks about is carpe diem theory, CARPEDIEM, seize the day. So seize the moment. The moment should be seized, and the moment that you get in hand should be enjoyed fully, not kept it for tomorrow. If you love a lady and you want to love her dearly, or a man, for that very moment, the time, love him or her truly from the core of your heart, with all your passion, with all your expectation from him or her. So reflections on God of love of God should not be too hard for you. Here are some suggestions as to how to look at the detail of individual poems under a way broad heading. So John Donne's poem, The Good Morrow, is considered to be a metaphysical poem, as Donne is typically metaphysical in its starting beginning. Its dramatic nature and progression of thought, its striking metaphysical conceits, its range of intellectual imagery, not like us ordinary people who do not understand the metaphysical aspects of anything that we do around, particularly of love. We love because it may be lust associated with it, sexuality associated with it. But it is something more than that. There is theology, there is geography, there is chemistry and cosmology that Donne wants to explain. It's scatologic mode, the use of hyperbole, saying something beyond the mingling of gravity and levity. The colloquial language, the presentation of the lovers as microcosm, and finally the union of the physical and the psychological in love. So the Good Morrow is a typical Donnean poem, love poem, divided into three stanzas. It is one of those love poems in which he praises the spiritual relation and hails it so ardently. So in the opening stanza, the poet expresses the wonder as to what he and his beloved did before they fell in love. He wants us to realize the fact, and he compares the love experience of himself and his beloved with weaning, falsely sucking country pleasures, or as child does mother's breast, and snorting. The reference to these three physical activities indicates that they spent a life of worldly enjoyment. But now the poet, using the conjunction but, makes a contrast and says that all these past physical activities seem to be utterly meaningless. The closing two lines of the first stanza imply that though the poet indulged in seven country pleasures, he has never been unmindful to perfect beauty of ideal spiritual love, which he always desired and has finally got in his present beloved. Obviously, there is a shift from physical to spiritual love, sleeping to waking period, sensuous appearances to ideal reality, and as if from Platonic cave to the world of light in the poet and his beloved. No one can love totally sensuously and without any feelings of the passion. In love, there is passion. Whatever may be the age in between, but there must be passion. So he's talking of that age. Here the poet seems to have touched the metaphysics of Plato. In his metaphysics, Plato at first takes something concrete such as a man, but soon he leaps into the abstract, namely the form of man. You love a wonderful rose, beautiful rose, red rose, but you feel the feeling of the love for the rose the moment you touch it, smell it. That is what is love. Similarly, Donne also begins with physical love and soon he turns to platonic or metaphysical love. So the first stanza contains several Donnean elements. It opens abruptly with an explosive question. This abrupt colloquial beginning, which is so characteristic of Donne, startles us and captures our attention. Another noticeable thing is that Donne swears this true relation. I wander by my troth, here he is unconventional. Any of his contemporary Elizabethan poets might swear to God, but Donne has not done it. Then there are the references of physical union and the use of imageries in the following three lines. That is very practical. Without touching the rose, how can you feel the rose is soft, the rose is warm, in its smell, in its beauty, in its feelings? Similarly is love. The fourth line contains a legendary conceit, a legend that tells of seven young men of Ephesus who took refuge in a cave during the persecution of the Diocletian king and were entombed there. So 7 years entombed, sleeping there. They were found alive 7 years, 2 centuries later. Here Donne compares himself with his beloved with the seven sleepers. Here he is cynical when he utters the word did. Surely the word did includes the connotation of sexual doing. What did we ever do with the time? The question arises, did he have any sexual love with his beloved? And without that also love cannot be complete. So the second stanza begins with hail and celebration. The unconscious past of flesh is over and a new conscious spiritual relationship begins. So the speaker celebrates the present. After the sexual love comes the spiritual love. Now good morrow to our waking souls. He also makes declaration that their souls have also learned not to spy one another, that the married women or men involved in extramarital affair with a dominant theme in the Elizabethan and the Jacobean literature. So fear only works in sensual lovers as motivation for watching over each other. That which is extramarital, there is always fear, beyond the limits of marriage, lest the other should become unfaithful to his or her mate. That is the fear. But the speaker and his beloved have overcome this fear, and a peaceful and satisfaction prevails their love. And for their faithful love, they will control the temptations of the other thing. They love so faithfully and ardently that their love has the force to be merged in the universal love and to move out to become an everywhere. So, as spiritual lovers, the poet and his beloved are indifferently to earthly pleasures and possessions. Let the sea lovers and map lovers do what they do like, discover new places, new culture, new people, make maps, add places to their maps. The lovers want to be happy with the joint world, though they have the individual world, but the individual worlds are fused into a single world, and that is their world. There they will discover themselves. Now they are just joint winners, owners of a single world. So here in this stanza we find the presence of imagery from the contemporary geographical world. This is an imagery, geographical imagery. That is to say, the contemporary geographical interest of the explorers. And the third stanza opens with endearing words from the speaker. The two lovers stand so closely that their respective faces are reflected in each other's eyes. The simplicity of their heart is also reflected in their faces, which are conceived as two hemispheres of their world, northern and southern. But the world of love is so unearthly, and its hemisphere are free from coldness and decay. They are not afraid of separation or break up of the relation because whatever dies, dyes, was not mixed equally, mixed equality, equality. The ingredients of their love have been proportionately mixed, and there is no wear and woo off between them, no pain or cause of pain of separation. So naturally, there's nothing more to fear now because they are truly and honest in love. Thus, the poem ends with the establishment of true friendship. After an abrupt beginning, there is a calmness at last. The couple has rejected the country's pleasure and entered into a true interdependent friendship. They have renounced the mundane world in order to possess an unearthly world. Experience has taught them that the true happiness can be achieved through a mutual spiritual attachment. Whatever may be the sensuality of love, but there's a spiritual attachment in what they do. So they don't have any qualm of conscience that they have done anything wrong. So in the first stanza, there's a regret of the past doings. When they did nothing, what they themselves don't know. In the second stanza, the pleasure of discovering something, the last stanza. The prospect, hope of being better, using the discovery. That's the beginning of the poem, the use of conceives for everyday life and myth in the first stanza. So the geographical reference of stanzas 2, the use of scholastic philosophy in stanza 3, and the ultimately the emphasis on spiritual love continues to make it one of them. One of those poems of Donne which combine intellect and emotion. So it is a flawless metaphysical poem, we say. divided into three stanzas. It is one of those love poems in which he praises the spiritual relationship between men and women and hails it so ardently. He does it stanza wise. In the first stanza, thinking of sucking country's pleasure as the child sucks the mother's breast, as snorting. So, the poet is different in his opinion about the first stanza. But there's a shift from physical to spiritual love, sleeping to waking period, sensuous appearances to ideal reality, as if from Platonic cave to the world of light in the poem, and his beloved. Here the poet seems to have touched the metaphysics of Plato. The first stanza contains several D- Donnian elements. It opens abruptly with an explosive question. This abrupt colloquial beginning, which is so characteristic of Donne, startles us and captures our attention. Another noticeable thing is that Donne swears is true relation. I wander by my troth. Here is unconventional. He wondered what he did when they had not fallen in love in the first stanza. Now, in the second stanza, begins with hail and celebration. The unconscious part of flesh is over, and a new conscious spiritual relationship begins. So, sensual pleasures have been attained by both of them, coming closer together. And now, the spirituality of the two have joined them together to make one. So the third stanza opens with the endearing words from the speaker. The two lovers stand so closely that their respective faces are reflected in each other's eyes. The simplicity of their heart is also reflected in their faces, which are conceived as two hemispheres of their world. But their world of love is unearthly, and its hemispheres are free and one from coldness and decay. No coldness, no decay. It is all permanent. So that the poem ends with the establishment of true friendship. After an abrupt beginning, there is calmness after all lustfulness. The couple has rejected the country pleasures and entered into true interdependent friendship. Renounce the mundane world in order to possess an unearthly world. So all these three stanzas, we very understand the themes of his poetry. It is all very clear. There isn't anything that we do not understand. He has made it clear. So the theme on the Good Morrow by John Donne is always a love poem theme. Honest love. After all lustful, first waking up from the spirit of what they had been doing when they had not fallen in love. Then when they understood each other and had fallen in love and have had a lustful way of entertaining each other, when that was also over in the third part, they are spiritually united. So the question is often asked in the paper, The Good Moral Analysis by John Donne is a metaphysical poem. It is a metaphysical poem above the physical state, where all the conceits, far-fetched thoughts which ordinary people do not understand, present in the poem. So he might be talking of Drake, Magellan, Columbus, who went round the world discovering new places, new lands, new people, new cultures, and adding places to the maps. But he is not troubled by their discoveries because he has discovered what is true love. He has attained the spirituality of love, and that makes him great, fine. So there's a sharp anti-Petrarchan conceits. And then there is perfect marriage of the body and the mind, the spirituality of the moment. So this question is very important. The analysis of the poem is also very important. Sometimes the question is asked. The good moral explanation and inner meaning is asked in the examination hall. So this inner meaning is also a question that is asked from here. Map imagery and other images are very important here in the poem. You shouldn't let it go as simple as that. The map imagery is a microcosmic imagery which should be understood from the point of view of the poet. Actually, he is the type of the poet, his conceits, his intellect is not like ours. We might not be thinking about all these because we don't have the least idea of thinking it. He may be using enough hyperbole into the poem, exaggerating his point of love, but that does not affect us. There is no pretense. Perfect love casts out fear, says the Bible, and he follows it strictly. That if there is perfect love, there shouldn't be any fear of getting contaminated. God is changing. Christian beliefs states that only God is changing. James in James 1 is 2:17 verse we find. The note of Christianity is there. The Christians would take it the way they would like to take it. The Christian men from Ephesus hid in a cave during persecution. Seven sleepers den, he has already told us. And we know the state of those people who were in the seven sleepers den. So the question always arises, where can we find two better hemispheres without north, without declining west? It is in our love, in our own true selves. After attaining all the physical calmness, quietness, pleasure of love, we have ultimately got our love. That is the spiritual love that we talk so much about. So, this is the essence of the poem, and this question is only asked either metaphysical state of love or as a love poem or as a metaphysical poem or as a poem of Donne's conceits, he asked. So it would all be the same. The answer would be nothing to be worried about. That what and in what manner should you answer it? It is the manner how you take the poem to be. And accordingly, the poem is not that difficult to understand. If only you can understand the essence of that love that the poet, the metaphysical poet, help us